Hello everybody! My name's Link, here to talk about my first impressions on a summer 2021 anime. So, I will admit, this one might be a bit different from the other videos because, hold on to your seats, I've actually read the source material. Everybody calm down! Don't call Area 51 just yet. I didn't get kidnapped and brainwashed by the aliens. I've been a fan of Mochizuki Jin Sensei since her earlier story, Pandora Hearts. That was so long ago I can't even tell you, because the messages of my friends forcing me to read it are condemned to Skype hell. So when it was announced that she had a new story, I excitedly jumped on the first opportunity to read it, until I didn't get very far and haven't touched it for years. And in this video, I'll expand on my reason why. So I'll be talking a little less about what I thought of the anime and my predictions for it, because like I said earlier, I've already read it and know a bit of what's going on. Though only for maybe half of the current series. I stopped pretty early and I can barely remember much since it's been years. And instead, focus on that one thing that caused me to drop a highly anticipated manga of mine. Or maybe serve as a bit of a forewarning, or something to anticipate. Because I really do think the show and story is fantastic, and now that I'm wiser and know what to expect, I know when I can grit my teeth and just turn my brain off until the show picks up to its interesting parts again. I'll try my best to not spoil too much detail, but just be warned that I will get into the story. That's a loaded intro, but without further ado, let's go. There once lived a vampire known as Vanitas, hated by his own kind for being born under a full blue moon, as most arise on the night of a crimson one. Afraid and alone, he created the Book of Vanitas, a cursed grimoire that would one day take its vengeance on all vampires. That is how the story goes, at least. Vanitas no Carte follows Noe, a young man traveling aboard an airship in 19th century Paris with one goal in mind: to find the Book of Vanitas. A sudden vampire attack leads him to meet the enigmatic Vanitas, a doctor who specializes in vampires and, much to Noah's surprise, a completely ordinary human. The mysterious doctor has inherited both the name and the infamous text from the Vanitas of legend, using the grimoire to heal his patients. But behind his kind demeanor lies something a bit more sinister. So, forced romances. At this point, I've accepted the inevitable fate of ruin that is unnecessary romantic plots. I hate them, but for the sake of my sanity, I had to grow numb to them. And so far, just learned to suddenly be blind when they were just that, unnecessary but unobtrusive. But surely, I have my rights to be slightly vexed when this romance is actively ruining both the characters and the story. If I haven't made it obvious earlier, I'm a fan of the author, and I believe I know what they're capable of. I've loved the complex relationships she's crafted in her works, which also includes a romantic pair. So I'm sitting here, wondering how she can make such an unappealing romance that's pretty prominent in the series. Of course it's not the main focus. We still have a fantastical, albeit somewhat overused, setting of vampires on a fictional Europe, thank God. But it's just in your face enough and hangs in the air like a really aggressive fart nobody wants to admit they did. So naturally, I went to the next plausible explanation, that this is some sort of gag. Unfunny one, sure, but I never go into a show expecting every joke to land 100% of the time. That's just not possible, even in actual comedy shows. And a gag isn't out of the ordinary, because out of the gate, we know this show isn't afraid to have a little fun in the stupidest of ways. And I think it just grinds well for the male character of this particular ship, because he's just that much of an ass. Yes, if I haven't shown enough by the characters in the screen right now, I mean Jean and Vanitas as the pairing. I won't complain about that in particular because I do find Vanitas' personality both refreshing and intriguing. It's enjoyable to watch a character very deliberately be written as a jerk, and most everyone agrees with this. If you watch my other video where I go about Shakunato Kabare's main character and how cathartic it is to watch him get his ass beat because he's such a bastard of a main character, then the same applies to Vanitas. Vanitas is a hilarious little shit that has good intentions, But that doesn't excuse his actions, and other people do want to cave his face in because of it. That is clearly established. He isn't a good person, and in fact, can be a tad malicious. You can't expect a wholesome relationship to be rooted in him. And in all sense of the word, he looks like he's just fucking around with this entire love business with Jean. So here I am, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for this gag to be over. It stopped being funny since the whole act was conceived, and I would very much like it to stop now. But, as I've heard from my friends that brave going further, it doesn't look like it's getting any better. And I'm sitting here in denial going, wow, this is one really long gag. Like I said, I've grown numb to romantic plotlines that honestly have no business being there. They can have their little cringe fest to the side while I go grab a drink until they get back to the actually entertaining parts. What particularly offends me is that these two actively affect the viewing experience. Because the story insists on having a serious moment for every other character, then abruptly cut to whatever nonsense these two are doing. And it takes all tension away from whatever trauma the others are going through. And what's so damning about it is that it makes absolutely no sense. To be this obtrusive and in your face, you'd think it's something that had deep meaning to it. But from the get-go, Jean thinking that Vanitas is the only person to be ever nice to her and tell her nice things about herself, which is one, wow, sad, especially since it's Vanitas, and most his compliments have a certain degree of backhandedness to them, and two, unfucking true! Because I'm led to believe here that the only reason Jean would deal with a bastard like Vanitas is that she's so deprived of kindness in her life due to both her power and circumstances. And unfortunately, Vanitas is the first to give her even a smear of kindness. But even taking aside Luca, who clearly cares for her well-being, she said other people take care of her and show her compassion. So surely the bar isn't that low. Which circles back to my point that it unequivocally makes no sense that Vanitas is constantly disrespecting her with a hint of twisted affection, and she still blushes about it. A bit of a side note, I first read these at the height of the "Teach your boys that teasing a girl she likes is wrong" campaign. So it left an extra bad taste, and just wasn't sticking if this was intended to be some extreme teasing. But Link, you, my humble viewer, argue? What if this is just the beginning, and there will be room for improvement in their relationship? Then great! Trust me, no one wants these uncomfortable advances and absolute desecration of character over with more than I do. But I can't help but be a tad bit impatient when this whole mess started at chapter 4 in the manga, and they're already 50 plus chapters in. Plenty of opportunities to have gotten closer have passed, and they haven't improved an inch. I'm honestly afraid to get this heated about this issue in particular because I once expressed this to a friend and I got accused of just being a BL shipper, and I think John is getting in the way of Vanitas and Noe. But listen, I've asked like 7 other friends what they thought of the story. The story! And all of them said they enjoyed it a lot except for when John and Vanitas happened. I never insinuated about either of the characters. I just asked how they were enjoying the manga. The thing is, I actually like John's character. Granted, Vanitas isn't within the general vicinity. I find her interesting, her power threatening and awe-inspiring, and some spoiler bits about the depth of her character and her past that I won't tell y'all. Because, believe it or not, I'm still trying to sell this show to you. She's strong and indeed beautiful. And all of that gets dashed against the stone because she goes weak in the knees for Vanitas faster than I can say dingleberry, and for the stupidest reasons. This is my exact gripe. Its tense and high moments ruined by the appearances of these two together because they're bound to inhabit the same space as prominent characters. And there's a painful characterization massacre on both parties as they turn into tropes rather than the delightfully complex and well-rounded personalities we know they can be. These two literally have better chemistry with everyone else but each other. And that's precisely why it's such a kick in the balls to have to watch these two painfully ruin themselves and everyone around them when they could just not. And there's no way the author doesn't know this. This just isn't another middle-aged man who managed to make more chemistry between Naruto and Sasuke than with Sakura ever. And that example is right in front of us with Vanitas and Noe and practically everyone else in the cast. The stuff she writes about them can't be achieved by accident. It's fun, subtle, ever-growing, but not without that large wall that's always looming between them. If there was ever a speck of nuance that Jean and Vanitas unable to get closer was an issue. Though at the same time, I also don't like the uproar by the dismayed fans with the recent episodes, in juxtaposition with pretty much everything else in the show. Frankly, this is what I feared when I heard that Vanitas no Carte was getting an anime. It's like watching history repeat itself. Mochizuki Jun is not a BL writer, and there isn't much indication that this will be her first. She's just incredibly good at writing dudes be bros. And I'm not insinuating that any same-sex romance is automatically categorized as GL or BL. So I won't complain and be a 12-year-old thinking that I'll get what I want if I demand it obnoxiously enough, when it was never a prospect to begin with. As nice as Vanitas and Noe are to look at together, they're confined in fanwork material for the foreseeable future. All I'm saying is that, while understandable that there might have been some suggestions based on the OP and the ED and the entirety of the show, enhanced by Studio Bones, but nothing that wasn't already there from the original manga. If you aren't familiar with the author and her style, don't get your hopes too high no matter how good of friends they may seem to be. Though don't take my criticism of how I see their general disturbance of flow in my eyes. Repeat with me, criticism doesn't mean hate. If you enjoy Jean and Vanitas, well, congratulations. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you're being well fed and ooh boy, you're in for a treat, I guess. I say as I barely contain my gagging. Whew. I feel like I talked around in circles for this whole thing just because I didn't want to give too much away, and I'm afraid I sounded too negative. I absolutely urge everyone to give this series a try. Mochizuki Jun has an absolute mastery in crafting a mystical world. Sure, at a glance, nothing really screams out as new. It's Europe with a touch of steampunk to the side that has vampires in it. But while Mochizuki Jun doesn't do anything new, she does everything right. You can feel every aspect they present has some deep-seated reason and lore, or a secret that's just beckoning you to discover. And you can tell a lot of moving pieces are at work with just how many facets of allies and foes alike. And just at a surface level, the characters for the story are already colorful with their multi-layered personalities that both complement and contrast each other on varying degrees. And if you've watched the recent episode 5, you'll see the first glimpse of just how deep a rabbit hole these characters are and the skeletons in their closets, and how it's only going to get rockier from there. The interwoven drama and self-discovery, with a mystery that endangers both humans and vampires alike if left unsolved. It just has all the elements of a great saga, and the opportunity to be conveyed by a great mind with a knack for putting her well-crafted characters through the emotional ringer 1,000 times to the point that what comes out the other end could barely be called mincemeat. It's basically evaporating from the air at that point. Does it just not have that one glaring issue for me? I don't believe that the author doesn't know what she's doing with these two characters. I'm pretty sure she's aware of exactly how she's portraying these two. There's no rose-tinted glass that's fooling anyone that this is a smooth sailing relationship. And she's also aware of the response it garners, so I'm thinking she has plans in store for them. Hopefully. As a whole, I think the current Vanitas no Carte is an extremely beautiful and intricate outfit, but has the ugliest belt front and center. Everything fits and matches except that. Its highs are heart-pounding and well thought out, while its lows are really in your face and distracting. But I say, if 90% of it is good, then it's definitely worth braving that 10%. Just be sure to know what you're getting into and don't be misled by the opening and ending on getting your hopes too high. And that's it for this one, everybody! Drop a comment down below on your thoughts of the anime or how you're liking it so far. The adaptation's going so smooth as far as I recall. Bones is doing an amazing job in adapting it both faithfully but also adding their own spin and making it its own experience. Check out this playlist to see my other series where I review and recommend anime you might not have heard of. Are they hidden gems or do they deserve to fall into obscurity? Let's find out together. And as always, don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you liked the video and consider subscribing for all things weeb and anime. Bye bye!